Okay. All right. Well, happy Monday and happy May. It's May now, huh? So I was just commenting, your friends on semester system are all like done with school this week. And we have like another 5 or 6 weeks to go. I guess 6 weeks to go. So that's that's that. But yeah. But anyway, here we are. Okay, so today I don't have a traditional lecture lined up. Instead, I want to talk about our final project. I don't know if you've met with your groups already or not yet. I imagine most of you not yet, and that's okay, but you probably need to meet this week, all right? So make sure, I hope you've scheduled a meeting, and what you really need to do this week is pick a data set, talk about and start to explore it. Okay, so I guess part of the picking a data set process is exploring some of that data. And so you have some of the tools to do a little bit of data exploration, right? You can group by a categorical variable. You can start doing summarize. You can do just some basic plots just to see if there's something interesting there to explore. Okay, or at least look at the variable names and see like, okay, is there something worth exploring, some kind of question that we can ask and try to answer with the data. That's what I want you guys to work on. Okay, so this on Brew and Learn, I want you to go, so this week you need to go on the group sign up page and you need to pick a time slot to do your proposal meeting. Okay, so I have several time slots between 8:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. Next week, so week 6 on Tuesday and Thursday. Okay, and basically I'm scheduling 20-minute meetings with each group, with a little bit of kind of a cushion, 10-minute cushion between each of these things. So it's going to be kind of, just group first come, first serve. I think there's 12 groups and 18 time slots. So hopefully you guys can figure out a time slot. The group meeting, proposal meetings will be done via Zoom. So you just need to sign on to Zoom. And that's that. Okay, and so the proposal meeting, you'll get a grade for it, and I started grading these just because the first time when we had proposal meetings, there were enough groups that just didn't take it seriously at all that I was like, it was just kind of a waste of my time. So. And a waste of their time. If you're not prepared for it, it's a waste of everybody's time. So, it counts for part of your grade, and I have a grading rubric put together, and so I'll talk about that. But I guess I want to talk about, finding data sets. I gave you, one of the things was finding data, and there were some different sources. And again, there's going to be different things you can look at. And I just kind of wanted to point out some pitfalls of past groups and the data sets that I kind of like thumbs down and said this is no good, and I kind of wanted to tell you why it was no good so you can kind of be on the lookout for some of these issues. If you have these issues aren't necessarily well, some of them are 100% deal breakers, but some of them, maybe we could kind of work around if it's clear that you've thought about it and you thought of some way to, deal with them. But that's what I want you guys to look at. I've also posted a couple projects, and maybe I will. So these are some projects that got A grades. Okay, so these are kind of example projects. I've I keep kind of changing some of the specifications for the modeling portion, and so I'm going to make a couple updates to the modeling portion, but just the data exploration and things that they've done I liked, and so I have these there. I wrote some comments on the Airbnb project. I'll probably write some comments on the airfare project, just kind of pointing out what are the things that I liked. Okay, let me open up this project proposal grading rubric, and so this is kind of like when you have your proposal meeting. It's the project is worth 300 points, and this is worth 30 out of those 300 points. So it's 10% of your final project grade. So even if you were to like do poorly on this thing, you only get like half your points on this. Like you can still get a 95% on your the final project. So it's not the end all, but yeah, I do want you to think about it and do well. So I kind of put these, either you can get graded a good, a basic, or a needs improvement on some of these different criteria. If you look at all of the needs improvement columns, if you add them all up, they're going to add up past 30 points. So like if you do really poorly, you're going to like lose all of these points. Obviously, the lowest you can get would be a 0 on the kind of proposal meeting, and I would say that's pretty rare. I don't think groups hit zeros there, but yeah, if things don't go well, I do require that we have a follow-up meeting. Sometimes the data set you've picked and just isn't going to, well, I tell you that I don't think it's going to work well, and groups will often take that and change their data set. Some try to kind of push ahead, and a lot of this, I guess is my some of it is my subjective opinion from, I think, kind of working with data for, I don't know, many years now. So I'm at least familiar with a lot of kind of issues that can arise. That you can encounter, and you are new to data analytics and data science, and so you might not be aware of a lot of these things. And so this is the point of the final project, is for it to be a learning opportunity, that you work with like real data that actually exists, not just stuff that comes from a textbook. Because everything that comes from a textbook, everything that comes from different packages and stuff will be nice and clean generally. You won't have all of these kind of real world, messy junk that you have to deal with. And so I want you guys to go out and look for a data set, and a little bit of mess is okay. Too much mess is no good. So anyway. What you have to do is you have to send me your data, at least links to your data or something, at least 24 hours before the meeting. So again, talk with your groups about when you want to sign up for your proposal meeting, okay? And then, this is like anybody can edit, so don't be a mean person and delete someone else's time slot, okay? We're going on the honor system. It's on Google Docs, so there's at least a history, and they were like, if there's a thing, then they say, hey, we signed up first, and somebody, then I can trace the Google history. But if somebody puts their group name, group number down, and their team members, just please respect that, okay? So anyway, but whatever time slot you pick, you need to send me your data, 24 hours in advance. So that means your group meeting should. Don't meet the day before, okay? I mean, you can meet the day before to just kind of once over and just review everything, but, you need to have your data picked out, well in advance, okay? Okay, so I will ask, tell me about your data, and I want you to be able to explain the data, okay? And I want you to explain kind of, where it was collected and things like that. And so I imagine a lot of you will want to go on a place like Kaggle, which has a lot of kind of user uploaded data. Again, some of these things are going to be non-issues if you stick with, where did I put it? Finding data inside here. I gave you some other places to check, like, data.gov. Some of the background information, you'll still have to explain it, but it'll be a little bit more clear. Usually a lot of these things will be well documented, okay? So different places, but if you do go to some place like Kaggle, okay, this is, you look at this and you go, okay, well, this is the graduate admissions data. It says this data set is created for prediction of graduate admission from an Indian perspective. And it says the data set contains several parameters which are considered important during the application for master's programs. And you got GRE score, TOEFL score, university rating, statement of purpose, and letter of recommendation strength out of 5, undergraduate GPA out of 10, research experience either a 0 or a 1, chance of admit ranging from 0 or 1. Right, and so it sounds reasonable, and then you open this up, and I have this thing, okay, and so I downloaded the data, and you got these numbers here, okay, and then I start asking questions, okay. And I say, okay, well, how is the data collected, right? And so, can we answer this question? And there's no information about how the data was collected, right? Who came up with this thing, right? And it says the data is inspired by the UCLA graduate data set. So I tried to look up what is the UCLA graduate data set, and I think I came across something here. And so this is some example, something where they had like the GRE and the GPA admit rate and things like this. And they were trying to, and this was an analysis where they did logistic regression. And it says, suppose that we are candidate example 2. Okay, researchers interested in how variables respond to kind of the GRE and GPA, prestige of an undergraduate admission, effective admission to graduate school. And then here it says we generated hypothetical data, okay? Generated hypothetical data, which in this case, that's a no-no, okay? You can't, no fake data, okay? So that would be a huge problem, all right? And so again, as you're exploring these things, some of these things, they look kind of good, and this is a very popular data set. It had received 1,700 upvotes, okay? Which is, I don't know, some measure of popularity in terms of on Kaggle data sets. But again, what is the meaning of this in terms of how was the data collected? What does it represent? This is, I will not accept simulated data or hypothetical data. I want things that are actually kind of recorded somehow. Even if it's recorded from an agency or institution or whatever it is, it needs to be recorded. Okay, so that's no good. Okay, one of the questions here is going to be: there are enough variables for interesting analysis. I don't know if I have a. Okay, I flagged this for a different issue, okay, but here's another data set, the top 1000s in IMDb. So this data set, I guess, deals with stuff from IMDb. So I guess June 2020 22, they scraped IMDb and they looked at I don't know, the top 1,000 movies, and see if we do IMDb top 1,000, maybe something sorted by, okay, so these are like, you know, the Shawshank Redemption, The Godfather, The Dark Knight. So these are, you know, very well highly rated movies and things like that. Okay, so we have, if you guys can see. So this, you know, people are like, well, I was into movies, right? You want to pick a subject that you're interested. Absolutely, that's an important thing, right? So we have ranking. Here's the ranking. The Shawshank Redemption, the year the movie was made. Okay, certificate is kind of the rating, and this is a little bit of a weird thing because there's different rating agencies, right? You have like for Europe, and they'll say like, okay, you know, this age and up, and in the US you have, you know, G, PG, PG-13, and R, and I don't know, other parts of the world they have different rating systems. So you get this, and it's kind of this mix of like, so here you have PG, is it Fellowship of the Ring was PG? I thought it was PG-13, but anyway, okay, well anyway, you know, so, you know, Shawshank Redemption 15, Dark Knight 12A, I think in the US PG-13 and R, and X for Godfather, it's just an R-rated movie, right? Okay, and then you have runtime, and then you have the genre of the movie, you have the rating of the movie, you have this Metascore. So this is the IMDb rating, I guess the Metascore, another rating website. Detail about the movie, all right. 2 imprisoned men bond over a number of years. Okay, the Godfather, the aging patriarch. Okay, so it's got a description of the movie, the director of the movie, and then some of the main actors. So Shawshank Redemption, you had, you know, Tim Robbins. Godfather, you had Marlon Brando. Dark Knight, Christian Bale. But also like maybe actor 2 and actor 3 and actor 4, right? And so like the Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan's the director, Christian Bale was actor 1, Heath Ledger actor 2, Aaron Eckhart actor 3, Michael Caine actor 4. I'm not quite sure the exact order that was determined by for these things, right? Okay, and then there's also some issues here, right? So for example, The Matrix, okay? The Matrix was directed by the Wachowski sisters, and so Lana Wachowski shows up as director. Lily Wachowski shows up in the actor 1 column because there were 2 directors, right? So this shows up here. And then Keanu Reeves shows up in the actor 2 column. Lawrence Fishburne, actor 3, Carrie-Anne Moss, and then you know, so now you only have three actors, right? So there are some issues. I mean, this is I could deal with this. I mean, there are ways to deal with it, but okay. The issue here, what relationships do you want to find? Okay, the other columns are votes and then gross box office, right? So what kind of relationships can you explore? And if you look at your numeric variables, you have rating and Metascore, you have votes and gross collection. So a common thing students propose is the rating of the movie and kind of the box office. And the answer is they're not good predictors of each other, okay? Also, keep in mind, this is the IMDb top 1,000. The IMDb top 1,000. So already, the lowest rating you're going to encounter is a 7.6. Okay, this is like the top 1,000 movies. So the absolute lowest you're going to encounter in this thing. All right, let me is going to be a 7.6. And so, is rating and box office related? Probably. There's probably some relationship in the grand scheme of things. But when you limit yourself to the top 1,000 rated movies, you're not going to find a relationship or as strong of a relationship. It's kind of like asking, is basketball ability and height related? And what's your answer? Yes, this is not a trick question, right? Is someone's basketball playing ability related to their height? Yes, you're going to find, you're not going to find very many, like if you are a short person, you will be at a disadvantage in basketball, right? Certainly there are some really great short basketball players, but overall, you're at a disadvantage, okay? However, if you look at the NBA, and you plot, if we have some way to measure, some players' ability, how many points they score, how many rebounds they get, or whatever, or maybe not rebounds, but how many, player rating versus height. Is there a relationship? And the answer is, once you get to the NBA, every single person there is really good, okay? Every single person in the NBA is really good at basketball, and no height is no longer a major factor, okay? You've got, most of the people are already tall, but it's not like the person who's 6'3" versus 6'7", that's not gonna make a huge difference in terms of, once you're in the NBA, can we predict who's the better basketball player? The person who's 6'3" versus 6'7"? No, we can't predict, okay? But regular population, can we predict a difference in basketball playing ability between the person who's 5'3" and 6'3"? Yeah, most likely we're gonna bet our money on the 6'3" person in basketball. So that's one of the issues, right? IMDb top 1,000, we're only dealing with the top 1,000 movies. And then so is rating going to be a good predictor of box office? No, not anymore. Not anymore. Okay? Sure. If you just did like, some crappy movie, probably there's a thing. But then you have to look at like millions of movies, right? Okay. Metascore, is Metascore related to rating? You're just going to find high correlation there. Basically, higher Metascore, higher rating, things like that. So not as interesting. Votes is also just kind of this weird thing where it's like, okay, how many votes did the movie receive? And there's not a good kind of predictor here either. It's just like it's all over the place. So what variables can you use? Is there anything related to year? Not really. And if you do some kind of initial analysis, you're going to find like, oh yeah, there were good movies made in the year, 1950, in the 50s, and there were good movies in the year, in the 2000s and the 90s and the 80s and things like that. Runtime, is that going to be a predictor of anything? And there's good movies that are long, good movies that are short. And then, can you do anything with actors or directors? And the thing is you're going to have like maybe a director, a really good director, like, someone highly regarded, like Christopher Nolan, will show up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know. Okay, maybe 6 times or something. Okay, and that's okay. 8 showed up 8 times. Okay, which is about as that's like really good to show up 8 times here. Okay, but again, 8 observations. I mean, what can we go? What can we do? Can we really make any kind of predictions? It's hard to do much with that, right? Let's see, Quentin Tarantino. Let's see, Quentin Tarantino shows up 9 times. I mean, these are just like directors that IMDb really likes, right? Let's see. Peter Jackson and the Hobbit movies, or the Lord of the Rings movies. Okay, it shows up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. But anyway, so again, issues with this data set is that I just think there's not enough variables to kind of find something interesting, and so I generally, and then okay, I guess the other thing you can work with is genre, and then this requires some text processing where you have to kind of split these things, crime, drama. I don't know. Godfather's crime drama, Dark Knight action crime drama, Lord of the Rings action adventure drama, biography drama, history. I did see a decent project with this data set where they kind of split up all the genres and tried to look at each category and see if maybe runtime was different for different categories and things like that. And but that's about as far as data sets go, there's some challenge. I think you would want a few other additional variables, and perhaps maybe something not just limiting to the top 1,000, but perhaps a better data set would be like, for the year from 2010 to 2022, just look at the past decade. Can you get all of the movies, made in that kind of decade? And that's probably a decade that you're at least marginally familiar with, okay? The movies during that decade. And you can say, oh yeah, I remember this thing and things like that. So if you can pull out more data sets or a data set where you're not limited to something like the top 1,000, I think can be better. Okay. Okay. So sorry, going on these things. So that's you want to make sure there's enough variables for interesting analysis, and that's going to kind of play into the initial exploration of your data, and so part of that is first of all checking to see if your data is trustworthy and reliable, and you want to kind of be able to explain why you think the data you have is trustworthy and reliable. And I only have kind of 20 minutes with you during our meeting, but I'm going to kind of, when you send me your data set, I'm going to do at least a brief look at it, okay? And I'm going to look for certain problems that are, in my opinion, kind of give away that, maybe something is a little bit problematic. And so, for example, one of the data sets was this on Kaggle, this Google Play Store apps. The information was scraped from the Google Play Store, and they got information about some kind of app, about the different apps, the ratings of the apps, the number of reviews, how big's the thing, and how many kind of installs. And as you kind of so these are the reviews themselves for the app itself. That's not what I wanted. But there's a whole bunch of duplicates, okay? And that's part of it is that during the scraping process, so this is the app title, but let me see. So, if I just kind of sort one of the column names on app. All right, so here is like a example of a duplicate row. And I think, when they did the data scraping, they scraped the site one day, and then they came back and they scraped it again. And so we have this EMRA antibiotic guide. I don't know what this is, with this rating, and you can kind of see these are, we have a duplicate entry, okay? And that, you just have to start going through and picking out, like, you have to start clearing all of these duplicates, which can be done. but sometimes there's issues where the rows aren't exact duplicates. Okay, so for example here, these two things look like they're duplicate rows, okay? But these two values are different. This is 666,521, 666,246, and what is that? Reviews. Okay, so one of these things, the first time they scraped it, it had 666,521 reviews, or 246 reviews, and then maybe the next time they scraped it, there was an additional 200 something reviews, 280 reviews, 520. So I don't know, maybe it's really popular and 280 people decided to write reviews in the time span, or maybe there is a review farm that they paid that uploaded a whole bunch of reviews. I don't know. Okay, I mean, it's a pretty popular app with over 10 million downloads, so it's quite possible that this is that those reviews are legit and real and things like that. But again, how do you get rid of duplicates here? As far as the date, it has the same kind of release date. So which one do you pick? So problems with that, and that will lead to just kind of challenges in kind of dealing with and cleaning up your data. So be aware of that, right? So the data contain many duplicate rows. Okay, and if you come into the meeting and you're not aware of a lot of these problems, I'm gonna take points off. Okay, you know what? We'll just deal with the lights on now. So anyway, that's so I want to make sure as you meet and explore and do this, really kind of check through and just say, hey, does this data set that we're looking at, does it seem okay? Do we have any of these problems? So some of these things are things like duplicate entries or missing values. Your data is almost certainly going to have some missing values, and that's fine. But I want to know what is your strategy for dealing with the missing values, and maybe you will say, all right, we're just going to throw away rows with missing values, right? Like if you're doing an analysis on on movies or something, and you need the IMDb score, and a movie for whatever reason doesn't have the IMDb score, then obviously you can't include that in your data set. But I'm going to ask questions like, okay, well, how many entries are missing data? What proportion of your data is missing? Do you have a strategy for kind of handling them, either leaving them out, or are you going to fill them in with some kind of number or something, which comes with pros and cons there. So thing like that. Even better is, we'll identify anything that looks kind of suspicious or unusual. And so this is one thing that I highlighted in the example projects under, so for the Airbnb project, they came across some suspicious entries. Okay, and so this was an Airbnb that was listed for $22,528. So this was a row that appeared in their data set, and so they took the time to kind of go through it, kind of row by row, or at least like sorting it and saying like, okay, what are some of these really high values, right? And then they said, okay, well, this is strange. Like, here's a rental, $22,528 per night. This appeared in their data set. So they went on the Airbnb website, tried to type in this information, and lo and behold, they did find it. And they just said, okay, there's no way that this one bedroom, 1 bathroom apartment could cost $22,528 a night. So either this is a typo or some kind of fraudulent thing, something. This can't be. This is not like a reasonable thing. So they threw this out of the data. But I appreciate that they took the time to kind of go through this and identify problematic values, right? They said, okay, and here was another one that was $2,000 per night, and they looked this up, and this was, oh, okay, this is like a mansion with 7 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. And so, yeah, it's pretty expensive, but they said, okay, I could understand renting an entire mansion or something for $2,000 a night, which sounds crazy to me, but they decided to say this might be a legit listing, right? So there's a little bit of kind of subjective analysis there, but I think also very reasonable. So that's one thing that that they did well, is that they identified some kind of suspicious values, and they included that in their analysis as well. Okay. And so if it's something you can do, you cross-reference your values with other sources of data. So, perhaps, you're looking at, I don't know, some kind of, COVID data or something. There's a whole bunch of different websites out there, and you can kind of check and see, at least, maybe you don't get the exact same number, but at least they're within vicinity of each other, right? So if one place says, okay, 18,028 cases, and the other website says, okay, 18,500 cases for this same time span and location, you say, okay, that's a reasonable amount of lineup. But if one place says 18,000, another place says 50,000, that's an issue. I want to make sure you guys can explain all of your variables, and especially if it's a variable that I've completely forgotten. I need to give you view quiz answers for today, right? Let's see. Hang on. Okay, I'll go ahead and give you all 3 view quiz answers right now, and they are the letters E, B, and A. Elephant, bear, apple. E, B, and A for today's view quiz answers. E, B, A. Okay, that's too small. But those are the view quiz answers. E as an elephant, B as in bear, A as an apple will be our 3 view quiz answers. I want to make sure you can explain your variables. So here's another data set that students proposed using, and it's this Spotify classification data set. Okay, Spotify song attributes, and they were trying to find similar songs. Very cool idea. Okay, and the variables are something like acousticness, danceability, duration, energy, instrumentalness, key, liveliness, loudness, mode. Okay. And acousticness would get a score like 0.0102 and 0.199 and 0.0202, 0.0481. And I just asked, okay, it says acousticness, the description says a confidence measure from 0.0 to 1.0 of whether this track is acoustic. So, we all know what, if they're just playing an acoustic guitar and there's no kind of effects and things like that, we'd say, okay, this song is an acoustic song. You have the acoustic covers of things like that. So we have a sense of what that is. But then I asked, okay, so I understand what this variable is trying to get, but should our answers not just be 1 or 0? Okay, and what does it mean for a song to get an acousticness rating of 0.366, and how is that different from a rating of 0.44? Okay, and these things, if we actually look at the data set, I just said, okay, here's a song that's listed. Okay, Mask Off by Future, all right? Acousticness rating, 0.01. And we go, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? Let's see, what else is a good, let's see if we can find something by Adele. Oh, nothing there. ASAP Rocky, right? So, okay, ASAP Rocky LSD acousticness rating of 0.193. And I go, well, I'm not sure where these numbers are coming from and what these things are. And I think we tried to dig down, and basically they ran the songs through some kind of algorithm that we don't really know, okay, some kind of program, and then the program just spit out a number. And so we had no idea what this program was spitting out, okay? And then I say, okay, because if I look up this song, right, and I don't want to do it on right now on YouTube, but if you look at this song, I don't know if anybody can confidently say this song should have a higher acousticness rating or a lower acousticness rating. If you have kind of like, if you take this song, which has acousticness rating of 0.128, Wishes by Beach House, okay, versus, I don't know, some of these other things, unless the acousticness rating is like 0.99, okay, then it's really hard to know, okay? Same thing with stuff like energy, danceability, okay? I don't know exactly what makes a song danceable, right? What does it mean for a song to have a danceability rating of 0.833 versus 0.494, okay? So it's tough. No student has convincingly explained what these variables, what the actual numbers are, right? We understand the concept of the variable, but then like, what does this number actually mean? I have not received a convincing explanation there. Okay, so I would say stay away. All right, student knowledge of the subject. You should know something about the subject. Usually, this is not too much of an issue. And maybe something like students have found like housing data sets for different cities, and so usually I will deduct some points. So it'll be like, okay, we found this housing data set for, I don't know, New York City or something, and I said, do any of you live in New York City? And maybe someone will have like relatives or know somebody, and usually I'll take off some points because you should be at least familiar with the different neighborhoods, right? Like if you told me, okay, I'm looking for apartments in the LA, and you say, okay, well, where are you looking? And you say Westwood, I can be like, oh, that's going to be pretty expensive, right? If versus like, I don't want to name any neighborhoods in LA, but we can say that, okay, that's going to be a cheaper neighborhood. This part of the city is going to be more pricey, things like that. So just some familiarity with there, okay. And again, potential scope and potential explore relationships. So I guess it kind of goes along with background data. There are enough interesting variables, or just kind of the data is complex enough and interesting relationships between variables can be explored. Usually, I would want at least a couple numeric variables and a couple categorical variables. That would be at least or maybe a few categorical variables where you can find subgroups. And usually a lot of kind of a very simple yet interesting exploration is, okay, if we looked at this subgroup, do certain relationships hold, right? So if you look at, maybe overall in the general population, there is a trend where between age and, I don't know, some other variable, okay? Maybe there's a question and we asked, how do you feel about this topic? I agree versus disagree. And maybe in the general population, we find there's a trend that younger people tend to feel this way, and as people get older, they tend, their opinions change, okay? Or not opinions change, but the answers are different between older people and younger people. Maybe that's a trend that we see. And then, I think what could be interesting is if you do a subgroup analysis and you say, okay, if we divided the population, looked not just at age and the response to this question, but also we looked at, high income versus lower income. Does that trend still hold? If we looked at different racial demographics, does that trend still hold? And what I think some of the most interesting analyses that come out are, for this one particular subgroup, the trend is actually different, or the trend doesn't hold, okay? Whereas, overall in the population, this is kind of the trend that you find, and in this one particular subgroup, it doesn't. And it doesn't have to be people. I think one of the kind of most interesting projects that I saw was a group was looking at this housing data set, and they said overall, houses that, or maybe some kind of rental thing, houses that have a pool can generally charge more for rent. Okay, so I think it was some kind of Airbnb, not this particular one, but houses that have a pool generally can charge higher for rent. And they were looking at places in LA. There's one particular area where having a pool actually reduces the rental cost. Can you guys think of this? It was for all zip codes right along the coast. So if the house was in a zip code that bordered the coast, having a pool actually reduced the rental cost. And that was because if you have a house like right on the beach, a beachfront property, those houses generally don't have pools. And if you were in a zip code that touched the coast, but your house had a pool, that meant you were kind of more inland and that you weren't as close to the beach. And so the rentals that commanded the highest price were the ones without pools that were right along the beach, and the ones that actually had pools actually reduced the cost. And so that was one place where having a pool actually reduced the cost of rent versus pretty much everywhere else in the city having a pool increase that. And I thought that's a really interesting insight that came from the data, and it's again just a simple kind of exploration. Overall, what's the relationship between, cost and having a pool, yes or no? We looked at it for different subgroups, and that trend held up in most places except for these locations. And so I think those are the kinds of interesting analyses that I want to kind of have you explore. Obviously, you're not going to be done with your full analysis for the proposal meeting, but I want you to have at least done some initial exploration and check to make sure your data is reliable and whatnot. So please make sure you schedule a meeting and meet with your group, pick out something, schedule an appointment for next week for your proposal meeting. All right, so that's that. We'll resume with a kind of a regular content lecture on Wednesday. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. We'll see you then.